Home prices are expected to rise another 18% over the next 5 years, which means if you bought a $450,000 home today, it could be worth $541,000 by 2028. And that's exactly why you will regret waiting for lower home prices. If you're sitting on the sideline waiting for home prices to drop, you might be setting yourself up for massive regret. In today's housing market, waiting could cost you more than you actually think. In today's video, we're going to talk about why home prices are likely going to continue to rise and why waiting isn't going to help with housing affordability. Back in 2019, I had some clients who had purchased their home in 2017. In 2019, the market had appreciated. They had gained some equity in that property, and they were thinking because the housing market had increased so much since the lows of 2008, 2009, and it had been about 10 years since that low point, they thought that home prices could no longer continue to go up. They thought that a top was near, even though there were no signs of it at the moment. They had this expectation that the market couldn't continue to go up because in their eyes, what they wanted to buy just kept getting further and further out of reach. So at that time, they decided to sell their home and they were going to rent and wait until home prices pulled back. Well, we all know how that story ended. The following year, we had the pandemic. Interest rates moved to the lowest level that we ever saw on record, which not only increased buyer demand, but it pulled demand forward from years ahead, which in turn caused that property that they sold for around $625,000 to shoot up over $1 million today. And guess what's the worst part of this story? Those buyers are still sitting on the sidelines waiting to purchase a home because they got completely priced out of the market. And that's really what I want you to take away from this video. Waiting for lower home prices doesn't mean lower home prices are going to come. It doesn't mean housing affordability is going to improve. It doesn't mean a massive supply of homes are going to come to the market and drive prices down. In fact, you've probably heard the quote that the market can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent. And that's essentially what's happened over the last couple of years is more and more people create this doom porn online, this crash porn, that home prices have to crash because affordability is out of whack, when in all reality, that doesn't have to happen at all because it always comes back to supply and demand, which means as long as you have more people that want something than you have of that something, prices are either going to stay stable or they're going to increase. But there's one very, very important takeaway. All real estate is local. At the moment, we've seen inventory increase in markets like Florida, Louisiana, Texas. And some of those markets are now back to 2019 levels when it comes to inventory. Whereas you have other markets in the Northeast that are continuing to get multiple offers. Home prices are appreciating at rates that we saw 2 years ago. And more people are priced out of buying homes. So waiting to buy a home isn't about timing the market. It's about buying when it's the right time in your life. And with that said, I don't want you to take this video and think I'm telling you that you have to go buy a house today. If it's the right time in your life to buy a house, you have money for a down payment, you have good credit score, you have money set aside for an emergency fund, then yes, I do think you should consider buying a home because the earlier you do it in your life, the better off you're going to be long term because you're essentially fixing your housing costs. But on the flip side, if you don't have money for a down payment, you have crappy credit, it's not the right time in your life because you don't have job stability, you don't have relationship stability, you're not sure where you're going to be in the next couple of years, then you should be waiting to buy a home until all of those things are lined up. But with that, I want to talk about why home prices are likely going to continue moving up. And the first thing is inventory shortages aren't going away anytime soon. And one of the primary reasons for that is builders just aren't keeping up with demand. They can't build houses fast enough to keep up with the growing population. And over the next 10 years, demographics are going to be one of the key things that continue to push more and more people into the housing market as they turn prime buying age. And because builders aren't focusing on the entry-level price points when it comes to building new construction, they're focusing on getting the most bang for their buck. And what they're doing is building more and more homes at more expensive price points because that way they can facilitate the move-up buyer. And on those homes, they're making more and more money because they're bigger homes, which typically means there's more profit built into those properties. And unfortunately, that means less construction being built at those lower price points where we really need it the most. Now, I know what a lot of you are saying. Well, just wait until interest rates come down, just wait till home prices come down, then housing affordability is going to improve. And that's exactly why I'm waiting. Well, here's the thing. I want you to take a look at this graph going back nearly 60 years ago that show the rate of home price appreciation. Now, understand this rate of appreciation has been about 4.6% average over the last 65 years, which means that home prices go up about 4.5% per year. Now, that's not in a straight line. Some years they go up 5%, 10%. Some years they stay flat, but on average, they increase about 4.6%. Now, I also want you to take a look at this chart, which is interest rates going back the last 50 years. Now, if you'll notice looking at this chart, as home prices have essentially increased, interest rates have gone down. They don't move in lockstep with one another. In fact, they typically move opposite. That's because lower rates drives buyer demand along with improving housing affordability, and ultimately that pushes home prices up. So the likelihood of interest rates coming down and home prices coming down at the same time is basically non-existent. Now, I know what you're saying. Well, I just want the lower priced home. I don't care where rates do because I can always refinance in the future. Yes, that is the right way to think of it. But here's what I want you to know. People live in the payment and not the price. So if buying a more expensive house at a lower rate gives them a lower monthly payment, that's what 9 out of 10 borrowers are going to choose to do every single time. And with that, home prices are likely going to continue to appreciate long term. And one of the reasons for that is inflation. And that's because inflation affects everything. It affects materials, it affects labor, it affects property taxes, it affects maintenance. And guess what? Those increases get passed directly to you as the buyer. And that's one of the main reasons that real estate does appreciate over time. Short-term price dips might happen, but long-term value growth is inevitable. And waiting for lower home prices means you're likely going to miss out on future appreciation. And all the while home prices are increasing, guess what? Rents are also increasing. And by waiting for home prices to drop just means that you're paying someone else's mortgage for that period of time. So the cost of waiting is real. The longer you wait, the longer you miss out on the benefits of home ownership, building equity, putting money into that forced savings account by paying down the principal balance, along with tax deductions and that potential for price appreciation. At the end of the day, home ownership is one of the most effective ways to build long-term generational wealth. And by trying to time the market, you're going to miss out on huge opportunities. But at the end of the day, don't let me be the one to convince you. You have to buy when it's the right time in your life. So don't let the fear of lower home prices or a housing market crash keep you from achieving your home ownership goals. Remember, timing the market is nearly impossible, and it often results in you just sitting still, not making any move because you're always waiting on a better opportunity. But this is where I'd like to know your thoughts. Where do you think home prices are going? Are you currently on the sidelines waiting? If so, why? And one other thing, what is your solution for fixing the inventory problem out there? I'd love to know. Let me know in the comments below. Now, earlier in the video, I mentioned you will regret waiting for lower home prices, but there's also another side to it. If you buy a house right now and you're not completely ready, there's a really good chance that you could regret owning a home. And if you want to know what I'm talking about, check it out in this video here.